Hey guys, welcome back to the Accumulation Zone. I'm super excited to start this new coding mentorship for free here on YouTube. And in today's first lesson, we're gonna be coding your own MA indicator. And you will see this is how the indicator will look like. We have, you can select between EMA and SMA, give it a length, select the source, and you can also enable and disable each and every MA. So for example, if you're on a free TradingView plan, you can simply code along this indicator with me, and then afterwards you can use it, show it off to your friends, whatever you're going to do with it. Also, if you just want to learn it, you're very welcome, and let me get started coding this indicator. So let's get started straight away coding this indicator, and I'm going to be showing you step by step of how to code an indicator like this. So first of all, you have to open up your Pine editor and click on those three dots on the sideline and open the Pine editor in a new tab. Once you've done that, you've got your new tab that's completely empty, and now let's get started coding. So first of all, whenever we want to create an indicator or a strategy, we have to define it at the very top of each script. So because for the beginning of this mentorship, we will be focusing on indicators only, what we are going to write here is indicator. We give the indicator a title, and first question would be, how do I know what I'm writing in here? Simply by hovering over this little blue field, and you see the syntax below. Indicator, we can give it a title, a short title. We can decide if it's a overlaying indicator over your chart or if it's down below in a separate box. We can select the format, the precision, scale. You can read that all yourself, but that's how simple it is. You can also just copy and paste what I wrote in here. And yeah, that's about it. So we give it a title, Moving Average Tutorial, and a short title, Your Own MA Indicator. We want to display it on the chart. We don't want to see it in a separate window. That's why we have overlay equals true. Time frame, we don't define a specific time frame. We let that open to the user in the end of the day. And yeah, so now let's continue with the next part. Let's continue. So first of all, we are going to create the first moving average in the Pinescript coding language. So because I like my scripts very well structured, I just don't like it if it's messy and everything, because every time I come back to the script and want to modify it, I can't, because I first have to cipher through all this code, make a clear structure out of it, understanding it again. So I just like to structure my code very clear. That's why I always have those separator boxes in here. So I can simply scroll through here later on when we have more code and I know exactly where I am, what I'm doing at what exact point. So we start with creating a group for the input section. You will see this section in your indicator settings. So if we go back to the indicator here and we click on Your Own MA Indicator, this is the group, Moving Average Tutorial, exactly this. And that's what we designed up in here. So we're gonna define a variable, and that variable is called G_inputs. You can give it every name you want to. That's just how I'm gonna call this. And then afterwards we have a little string, and that's called Moving Average Tutorial. And like said, that's what we see right here, Moving Average Tutorial. So let's go back. The next step will be to start defining our first moving average, and therefore we're using the input string, so we can choose between different types of moving averages and their calculations. So if we go over here, you can see you can choose between EMA and SMA. So in the code it looks like this. We're gonna declare a MA type, and this MA type is just a local variable. And afterwards, we're gonna write a equal sign and we write input.string, because we want to let the user choose between 2, 3, 4, or whatever amount of strings basically. We're gonna give it a default value, and the default value is also a string, and that string is called EMA. And we give the user two options to choose between. It's two different strings, because remember, all we're doing here is strings. And we're gonna write EMA in here, always with those exclamation marks, and a SMA. We're gonna separate them by a comma, we're gonna give it a title, and I'm gonna talk more about what this inline has to do about it later. And last of all, we are going to add it to a group, which is called G inputs that we defined earlier all the way up here. So we let the user choose between different types of moving average calculations. So it will look like this. They can select, and depending on what they select, a different calculation will be shown. So, okay, that's the first step. In the second step, we can look at our template here on the euro-dollar chart here. We have to give it a length input. So how are we going to do that? We go back to our Pinescript and we do it exactly like this. Instead of using the input.string function this time, we are using the input.int function to let the user choose a integer used as MA length. So we are going to declare this local variable again as MA length number 1, because we are going to add multiple MA lengths later on. So we have to separate them. So the first MA is going to have that number 1. We're going to use input end. And if you don't know, let's say, for example, you want to write your own indicator, you can just hover over input end and it's going to give you the whole syntax. So we're going to need a default value, a title, a minimum value, a maximum value, a step if we want to increase it in ones or 0.1 digits, a tooltip, that's not really important, inline, group, and confirm. It already tells you all this. So what did I do here? I gave the MA length number 1 a default value of 21. I'm going to leave the title blank because I don't need a title for that. I want it to look as smooth as here. So we don't really need a title here. And the minimum value is 9 because I don't want to let the user choose a MA that's smaller than a value of 9. The maximum value would be 200 because, same thing again, I don't want to let the user choose a higher number than 200. We're gonna increase it by steps of 1 because we can't do 0.1 with an MA. And now the inline function here, or the inline local variable, is going to be important again inside this input function because I want it to look like this in one smooth line. So I want to have the selection EMA between EMA and SMA. Afterwards, I want to see the length. After the length, I want to choose between the sources. And least but not last, I want to be able to enable and disable the MA. Alright, so that's why I'm using inline. And all you basically have to do here is, for example, you could call this MA 100. The only important thing is that that's like basically a group within a group to write everything in a line. As long as those two match up, those two here, everything's alright and they're going to be plotted in a line. So let's remove this and bring it back to MA1 because it's not the 100th MA. And again, we add it to the group of G inputs. The next step will be to let the user choose the source of how the MA is being calculated. Most of the time, it's just being basically calculated with the close of each candle, but you can also choose open, high, low. And this is very simple. All we have to do is go back into our Pinescript window, and we are this time using input source to let the user choose a source. And again, we create a local variable, but this time we call it MA source number 1, because again, we are going to create multiple MAs. Input source. Here again, you see all the syntax you can possibly write into this built-in annotation function. So we're going to give it the default value of close. We're going to leave the title blank again. But you could write the title, for example, in here, and then it would say, for example, MA source number 1. But like said, I want them all in one line. So I'm going to give it the same name here, in line, with the same string, MA1, as here. And now it's going to write it in a line. We're also going to get added into a group of G inputs that we defined earlier up here. The next step is, I think that's very important, the little function up here. Let me load this window. If we want to display the EMA or SMA, or if we don't want to display the EMA or SMA. So you can simply do this with a click of a button. And how are we doing this? Simply by using this little line of code. We are using this time a input.bool. So we already used input.source to let the user choose a source we need to calculate the MA, a length that we need to calculate the MA, and this time we're using a bool. And so with that, we let the user choose if he wants to show the MA on the chart or not. And bool basically just means if it's a true or false condition. So I'm giving it the default value of true because by default I want it to be displayed. I'm going to leave the title blank again, like up here. I'm going to write it, I wanted to see it in the same group within the group G input. So I'm writing inline MA1 again, right as here. So all those strings here, basically, all those input fields that we are going to see inside our settings are written beautifully like this in one single line. All right, so that's basically that. Let's continue. Now we are finished with all the inputs. So inputs are always what you are going to see inside your indicator settings. So next on, we have to calculate it actually. And how are we doing that? So we calculate the MA depending on what the user is choosing. So, okay, that might sound complicated now. I could have done it way easier, but I want to actually teach you something and don't just start at the very, very, very bottom. Just code it with me along with this video and you will understand. It's super simple. So again, we define a local variable of MA_calc. And to this, we write an equal sign afterwards. And now we are basically letting the script know, okay, if the user selected the MA type 1 EMA right up here, EMA, then we write a question mark after it. We want to use the calculation of TA.EMA. And again, we can hover above it, and all this little built-in function needs is a source and a length. The source we are getting from here, MA source 1, because we already defined that, or the user is able to select a specific source. And MA length 1, we defined that up here, where we let the user choose a number for bars to look back to calculate this moving average, because that's what we're doing. We're calculating an average of a certain amount of bars look back. And now, because we have to let it choose either between EMA or SMA, we are writing a two dots above each other. I forgot the word, sorry about that. yeah. So basically all this says here, this little separator, let's call it separator, you know what I mean, is if the MA type is not EMA, that's what we're asking it here. If the MA type equals EMA, then we want to let it calculate an EMA. If it's not EMA, then there's one other scenario, and that would be the SMA. So in case the user did not choose EMA to be displayed, then we are going to calculate a TA SMA. And we're going to use the same source and length input again that we use on the EMA. So that's basically it. And afterwards, we just write in here a little float, a little built-in function, and we're going to give it the input in here, the local variable of MA_calc. This just means that basically whatever is calculated within this variable, it's just floating around in our script for whenever we need to use it, we can simply use this float. It's just floating around there waiting for us to use it, basically. All right. The next step before we are actually able to load this premature indicator on our chart is that we have to plot something and display our calculation on the chart. So here I wrote display the MA1 on the chart, and only if we want to see the MA on the chart, we show it, otherwise we don't. So what we do, again, we create another local variable and we call it MA1. Afterwards, we write the function. We use the function plot, and inside this plot function, we ask the script again. If show MA1, this bool input here, show MA1 is set to true, we wanna display whatever value came out of the MA calculation, basically. And if it's not true, so if, for example, if we go over here onto our chart and we uncheck this box, we don't see the MA line, the EMA or SMA line on our chart at all. And if we click on it, we see it. If we enable them all, we see all three and all of them are filled. So basically that's all we do. We ask the script, okay, if the user wants to see MA1, then display the MA calculation 1 here. Otherwise, do nothing. We're gonna give it a color. So in here, we, for example, can simply write color.green. And then it's automatically the color green. We're gonna give it a line width, and we add it with the title MA #1 or number 1 or whatever there's no rules what you write in here. You could write whatever you want in here. So now we save the script and we see we don't get an error. And then we go back to our chart. We look into our indicators and we search for your own MA indicator, lesson 1. And now this is the indicator we created so far. We see everything of this indicator is in one line, all those settings we created, because we use this little tool inline and we call it MA1 in all of those 4 input sections. So again, we used input string to let the user choose between the string of EMA and SMA, and depending on what the user chose, we're going to use that in our calculation. So if the user chose the string EMA, we want to calculate a EMA. If the user does not choose an EMA, there's only one other option, that would be an SMA. So we can simply write this here and use the calculation method of TASMA. And that's all built in by Tradingview. You don't have to look on Google what the calculation of an SMA or EMA or an RSI is. Tradingview or Pinescript is calculating that for you already. If you just give it the syntax of the source that we defined up here and the length right here that we defined up here using input int. And now we have this on our chart already. We colored this in green. And yeah, let's actually make this line a color changing line. To create the color change, we basically have to define rules for the script to execute. So right here, I pasted the color changing logic. And so the color changing logic would be if the current candle close is greater or smaller than the MA, we let the script know to change its color. So all we do is we define a MA1 color, local variable again, and you see how many of those we create, because those variables, those local variables, we can later on reference and use in different functions. Very simple. You don't have to overcomplicate it. You don't have to know what a variable or a function blah 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 is. Tradingview is basically letting you know what it wants. So okay, we want the color to be green if the current candle close is closing above the MA, and we want to color it in red if the candle is closing below the MA. So how do we do that? We reference the close by simply writing close in here. So if the close is larger or greater than the MA calculation we did up here, then we use this simple question mark again. So if this is greater than the MA calculation, we want to see the color green. And if it's not greater than it, so it must be smaller than that, because there's no other option, or maybe it's equal, then we want to see the color red. And now to actually change it, what do we have to do? We have to grab this variable, copy it, and instead of writing here a constant color, we are going to change it to a dynamic color, Command V. And now, if price is closing above the MA calculation we did up here, we are going to see green colors, and if not, we are going to see red colors. We don't have to define it in here anymore because we define it in this color variable. So now if we click on save and go back to our chart, we see now that every time we are above the MA, it's colored in green, and every time we're closing below it, the MA is colored in red. Very simple, very easily done, and that's basically it. You will see what I mean with it afterwards. If this was too fast for you, you can simply pause and continue watching the video afterwards, or you can code ahead of me if you already have a little bit of coding experience, but there's nothing wrong. You can simply pause the video and try to write the lines of code I always paste in here into your own Pinescript window, and then you save it, add it to your chart, and you see. Sometimes you might get some error messages. We're gonna discuss this topic in a later video. That might be lesson 10 or something. I first want to teach you something about coding a few indicators. And if you have any questions, feel free to join us on Discord and Telegram. And yeah, then I will answer your questions over there. All right, so now basically the hard job is done. All we have to do now to create this ribbon, basically, since we already coded one MA, all we have to do is copy and paste, copy and paste. So we copy this whole section we just coded, Command C, and paste it one time. And now what we are doing is wherever we see the number 1, we're gonna write 2 because it has to be calculated differently with different inputs and everything. So we can delete this part here because the group has already been created. And all we have to do now, wherever we see the number 1 in a local variable, we're gonna write 2. Same as here, inline MA2, NA2, and we're gonna change it to 2 here as well. 2, MA2, MA2, MA2. We're now gonna give it a different default value of 50, for example. And we're also gonna underscore to it here. MA type is number 2 now. Number 2, number 2, number 2, number 2. It's getting boring. MA2 color. If MA calculation 2 is above it, we're gonna call this plot MA2. If we want to show MA2, we're gonna write MA calculation 2 here. MA2 color here. Gonna call this MA2 as well. And I think we've done it all now. We can click on save now. Oh, we got an error. Save operation failed. Try it again. Reason, error. Okay, we don't see an error yet. I'm not really sure what's going on with it. I will pause the video and come back and will tell you about it. So this was a bit odd. I think that was just a Tradingview bug or something. I also forgot to define this float as MA calculation 2. This might have been an error. Usually it would highlight it red, but that's usually how coding goes. You code a little bit of text or code, a few lines, you save it, you see if you get an error, and basically Pinescript already tells you what the error is, and it's pretty simple to fix. If not, Google is your best friend. You can basically find the answer to all your coding questions on Google, on websites like Stack Overflow or Reddit or wherever, on GitHub even. And if not, you can always ask me and I will be helping you as soon as I can. So now that we saved it here, we go back to our Euro US dollar chart and we see that we now have 2 color changing MAs on our chart. All we have to do now is do it a 3rd time. So we copy it again. And paste it again. And now we're going to change all the number 2s to the number 3. But I will be doing that off screen, so I will be back in a second. All right, I'm all done changing all the number 2s here to number 3s. Very simple. And now we already have 3 MAs on our chart. You can do 4, 5, 6. You can even do 100 MAs if it really helps you trading. So it's pretty simple. So you don't have to purchase Tradingview Pro or whatever you want to do with it, you can simply, for example, code your own MA indicator to save some indicator space on TradingView. And now we go back and we see we have our 3 MAs that all change color depending if we're above or below the MA. So here we're changing red. And now I've got a little homework for you guys. If we go back to our code here, I want you guys to, until I release the next video, code the band fills. So here's a little bit of homework, a little tip, so you can use the fill function and read the information text when hovering above it. So basically what I mean by this is you type in fill, and you already see the suggestion by TradingView. You click on return, and now you see the information text. So now you can see what actually can be filled using the fill function. But I leave that up to you guys, so you also learn a little bit. And yeah, I'm very excited to finish this first coding lesson. I hope you liked it. I'd love some feedback in the comments, or maybe send me a message on Telegram or Discord if you liked it, or if you would like me to code each word individually. For me, that's just a little bit simpler if I simply copy and paste each section and talk a little bit about it, of how it's done, what it means. Otherwise, every video would be 1 hour long and no one would be bother watching it, because it's a plain and simple MA indicator. But now you can show off this indicator to your friends. And yeah, I'm excited for you guys to see if you're able to fill out these bands by yourself. If not, I will be showing that in my lesson number 2. And yeah, if you like this video, make sure to subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. That really helps me out. And if you want to support my YouTube channel and the work I'm doing here and offering this coding mentorship for free, you can simply support me on Patreon, or you can also pay with crypto via Celix.io, and you get something for it as well. You get the insane Scalper Pro indicator. It took me so long to code this indicator and perfect it, and now I'm using it. I just shared a very recent strategy that's called Pass Every Prop Firm Challenge, and this morning I traded the London session here, represented by this blue box. And yeah, I took the signals of the Scalper Pro right here. I had 5 winners in total and 1 losing trade, where I did not stick to the rules. I gotta be honest, I did not stick to the rules. I want to see this thing go up and hit my take profit, but obviously it didn't right here. But yeah, I mean, 5 winners and 1 losers is pretty good for me. So yeah, we saw those insane bullish divergences, so I was looking forward to take this thing long, and I just got a little bit impatient here. So, but later on I got my long entries right over here, got a 2-to-1 here, a 2-to-1 here as well. So if you want access to the Scalper Pro indicator, the Thin Algo, you can get it by supporting me on Patreon. And yeah, thank you very much for watching this video to the end. And I forgot, you can also get a free trial by clicking on the link in the description. You come to our website, you fill out the free trial form, and you get a 10-day free trial of the Scalper Pro indicator. How good is that? Alright guys, take care, and I will see you in lesson 2. And make sure you do your homework.